Travis Miller from Boiler Upload joins us. We were both up in Indianapolis for that round of games. Purdue opens up with a game against the Washington Generals and handles them pretty well, pretty easy. What was the tallest player they had?
I think they had a 6'10" guy they threw out there at one point, but
I don't think he was a regular player.
I think the funniest comment that I heard was late in the game when Purdue had put in the bench and they put in the 7'2" Swedish kid, Will Berg. He comes onto the floor and some Grambling guy behind me goes, "When do they let the avatars play in this?"
Yes. But a huge weekend for Zach Edey and Purdue as they have two dominant wins over Grambling and then Utah State. But things ramp up this weekend as they will play a Grambling team a Gonzaga team of which you just saw that they're currently just a 4-point favorite over. And I mentioned previously, this is the 9th straight Sweet 16 for Gonzaga, but although they have the most since 2015, the most NCAA tournament wins, they got 0 titles, man. Of course, you got Purdue who's seeking their first title. So here's a clash. Does Mark Few's quest end by Purdue, or does Purdue's frustration carry on? So somebody is at least going to be happier, at least for a weekend. And earlier I mentioned Travis, and I saw something that Mark Few had said in regards to playing Baylor back for the title game a few years ago is he wished that he had played them earlier in the season to have a better understanding of the physicality of that team because it really was a big part of why they lost to Baylor. And now he does have an understanding of Purdue's Zach Edey and what goes along with there. So you know what's coming, at least. Whether or not you can stop it, that's a whole different story. But you look through the tunnel, you see a light coming, you just don't know if it's a train or not. So, no pun intended there. Slid that one in. But yeah, but Purdue fans very, very happy with the outcome this weekend in Indianapolis.
Yeah, yesterday they were down 24-23 with about 8 minutes left, and Camden Heide gets a rebound, an offensive rebound. He turns it into a dunk, and that was effectively shifting Purdue into a different gear because they just blew Utah State's doors off from that point forward. It's almost like they just kind of let them hang around for 12 minutes and did we fooled around long enough. It's time to put this team away. But looking forward here at Gonzaga, you mentioned the familiarity there and everything. Yeah, it's there. They played last season out in Portland. Purdue won by 18. They played earlier this year in the Maui Invitational. Purdue won by 10. And it is something where they're very, very familiar with Purdue. They've lost to them twice now within the last 15, 16 months. And you're not going to have a lot of non-conference familiarity there at this point in the season. So that is something that's going to help. It is not the first time Purdue and Gonzaga have met in the NCAA tournament. They met in 2000 in the Sweet 16 and Purdue won by 9. And all-time Purdue is now 4-0 against Gonzaga. I actually remember the very, very first meeting was my sophomore year. We played them in the preseason NIT in Mackey Arena, and Gonzaga was Gonzaga. I don't think they had even made the tournament before that. And now they're on a streak of 24, 25, 26 consecutive tournaments. So it's just interesting to see that the history there went from, we're playing this small school no one's ever heard of out in Washington 25 years ago to, they're one of the premier schools in college basketball. And it's amazing that they've been able to build.
Freezer. He's in the freezer. Travis is in the freezer first. There we go.
Am I back now? Or
You're back, baby.
Yeah, I saw you freeze too, so I don't know whose end it was on.
Well, go ahead and finish.
Yeah, but yeah, I was talking about Gonzaga. It's just amazing to see how they have grown as a program. I saw them my sophomore year at Purdue in the preseason NIT, and Purdue beat them. And at the time, I was like, where in the hell's Gonzaga? Who the hell is Gonzaga? And that was before they were Gonzaga. So just they've been a fun team to watch over the years. And like you mentioned, just incredibly successful without an NCAA title, but what, 7 straight Sweet 16s? You cannot discount that.
No, and it's going to be, I think it should be a good game because Mark Few played them, and he knows that they're going to have to do some things differently. I'm looking at a post now from Jared Odell, former Indiana player, that says, big guys from outside the Big Ten. You won't be the first guy to stop Zach. Quit trying. Play him from a different side every possession. Give up a 2. Don't let him have 3. Quit banging on him. Survive till the second half with fouls. Then go balls out like you never have. That makes more sense because you're not going to, I mean, I get Purdue fans would hammer me for this, and that's fine. But I don't think Zach's a great basketball player. I think he's a great immovable object that is so unique and so different than what you're used to from every other game you've played this year, because you have not seen anything like it. You might have seen other guards that could shoot lights out. You may have seen other guards that are fast. You may have seen other slashers, but you have not seen a Zach Edey, period. He is a monster at 7'4", 300 pounds. He can only jump about 3 inches off the ground, but he doesn't have to. And Zach's right, man. You're not going to hockey shack him. He's a good free throw shooter. So you're only hurting yourself in that regard.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the last 2 games that Purdue played against Gonzaga, because they have obviously they played them earlier this season. They played them last season out in Portland. The game in Portland, Purdue won by 18. Edey had 23 points, 7 rebounds. He was 10 of 16 in 31 minutes. This year out in Maui, 25 points, 14 rebounds, 8 of 16 from the floor, 9 of 10 from the free throw line, 3 blocks. So they've gotten 2 shots at him, and it's been ineffective at best for them. I know that he had some help this year. Braden Smith had 13 points, and so did Lance Jones in the game out in Maui. But they've not been able to stop him yet. And like so many games, and like it's going to mean later on this year in the tournament, however long Purdue plays, it depends on what the guards do. You saw yesterday, Lawyer had 15 points while Braden Smith battled foul trouble. Braden Smith had a fantastic game against Grambling. Purdue was hitting its threes yesterday. You have Miles Colvin come in off the bench and he hits 3 threes. You have Camden Heide come in. He hit a big 3. So as long as Purdue is able to knock down those threes, 35%, as long as you're shooting 20 of them a game, you shoot 35%, that's going to keep teams honest. And like you said, you cannot physically guard Zach Edey one-on-one. It is not possible.
Now, I was having a conversation. It's going to take me a second to remember who I was talking with on this, but they were talking about Trace Jackson Davis. And the reason that one of the reasons Indiana was able to have success against Purdue last year is because Trace Jackson Davis was not a straight up match for Zach Edey, but he was just more athletic, and he had enough size that he could battle with him. I'm not saying stop, but battle with him and cause problems for Zach Edey having to keep up with a little more athleticism. And you're going to have somebody like that on your team. Trace Jackson Davis is playing in the NBA right now. So you need a big that is athletic and talented that can cause some problems. Now, if you've got one that is that and can shoot from outside and draw him away, that's even more so.
Yeah, and the closest approximation to that was when they played out in Portland in the 2022-23 season when they had Drew Timme, and Timme played 36 minutes. He had 22 points, 9 rebounds. He took a couple threes and hit one, but Zach really kind of got the better of him in that matchup. And again, it came down to the guard play too. Lawyer and Smith combined for 28 points in that game. They hit 5 threes between them. And you also had a solid game from Caleb First off the bench. I think another player that's going to make a huge difference. You probably saw this yesterday. Trey Kaufman-Renn. Yesterday was one of his best games as a Purdue player. 18 points, scored the first 8 of the game, and he really took advantage of all of the focus that Utah State put on Edey. And if you get Kaufman-Renn and Edey going on that low block, I mean, they combined yesterday for 41 points. If they're going to score 41 points, you're not beating Purdue.
Absolutely. And this next round is going to be another fun one, I think, for everybody, not just Purdue, but Purdue. I don't have the brackets pulled up, but what are the options if they're able to get past Gonzaga in their bracket?
If they get past Gonzaga, they would play the winner between Creighton and Tennessee. They have already beaten Tennessee this year. They beat them by 4 in the second round of the Maui Invitational, because it's entirely possible they could go Gonzaga, Tennessee, Marquette, just like they did out in Maui, with Marquette in the Final Four. The Marquette will have to get past, I believe it's NC State. Houston has to get past Duke. But that would be their Final Four opponent. I'm not even thinking that far ahead. I'm not even dreaming that far ahead. But you've got to feel at least cautiously optimistic for, as well as Purdue played this weekend in Indianapolis, and they get 2 opponents that they're very familiar with. They've already beaten 2 of them in the Elite Eight. I'd be interested to see if they play Creighton with Kalkbrenner. He might be able to give kind of that one-on-one matchup to where he's not going to shut Edey down, but he can at least hold his own one-on-one against him in the Elite Eight for Creighton. So, but Creighton's got to get past Tennessee, and with Dalton Connect, Tennessee's going to be a very, very good team. That was a very foul-plagued game out in Maui that was, pretty much devolved into a free throw shooting contest in the final moments, and Purdue won. But, nothing is guaranteed at this point. But if Purdue plays like they did against Utah State, I think it's going to be incredibly difficult for a team to beat them.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to get down to teams doing things better than they've done. The Creighton Tennessee game is going to be a hell of a game. Both of those teams are very good, and either one of those teams will be a worthy opponent for Purdue if they move forward. Tennessee, obviously, a game that you win by 4 shows that they have the talent. And with Dalton Connect, if it wasn't for Zach Edey, probably the player of the year in college basketball.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the box score now for that Tennessee game. That was another big game for Edey. All of them are big games for Edey. He had a 23 and 10. He had foul trouble in that game too, but the difference really was Fletcher Lawyer. Fletcher Lawyer had 27 points. That's his season high, and he carried Purdue in that game. They limited Connect to 16 points and 7 rebounds. But it was a game where Tennessee shot 30 free throws. Purdue shot 48. That is 78 free throws between 2 basketball teams over a 40-minute game. 78. I don't think you're going to get that again. At least I hope not, because a lot has been made about, it's ugly. It's how Purdue plays basketball and whatnot. That's what happens in some of these games. They just devolve into foul fests. And, okay, so Purdue can shoot free throws and win foul fests. I think they also showed yesterday they can get out and run with a team, because you don't score 106 points without being able to run a bit.
Braden Smith started the first game off hot. Then he's missed like 5 or 6 in a row, but he was pouring in the assists. And he is really kind of focused on that, it seemed, even when his shots aren't going, that he starts looking for the other guys to get the ball to.
Yeah, and that's what his MO is he wants to distribute the basketball, and that is the biggest difference this year between this year and last year. He had 0 turnovers against Grambling State. 10 assists, no turnovers. Last year when they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson, he had 6 assists, but he had 7 turnovers and really struggled in the second half. So he has improved his game, and if he can look to score the basketball, I know Coach Painter wants him to look to score the basketball a little bit more, but he is fine with dishing off assists, leading to layups and dunks and everything, or finding an open 3-point shooter on the perimeter, and he has been masterful at that all season. He is averaging over 7 assists a game, 7.3 per game. You look at that, that's at least 14 points he's facilitating, sometimes 15, 16, 17, depending on if the assist is for a 2-pointer or a 3-pointer. And that can't be overlooked when he himself is scoring 12 points. So, 14 points on assists, 12 points himself. That's more than Edey is doing a game. And I mean, you get the two of them going together. That is why Purdue has won 31 basketball games this year.